heart of the village of Mystic stood a desolate, abandoned ruin shrouded in mystery for generations. Legends whispered that the place was cursed, haunted by the malevolent spirit of Hellcat, a deadly witch whose skull held a terrible curse. It was said that anyone who dared touch her skull met a gruesome, fiery end. The stories were so terrifying that even the bravest villagers refused to go near the ruin. Ashton, a young man recently moved from the city, found these tales laughable. He craved excitement, adventure, and the thrill of the unknown. Determined to unravel the mystery behind the skull, Ashton convinced his friend Barry to join him on a late-night expedition to the ruins. As the two set off under the eerie light of a full moon, an unsettling thrill coursed through Ashton's veins. The path to the ruins. The night was dark and thick with silence as Ashton and Barry made their way through the dense, twisted forest that led to the ruins. With only a flashlight to guide them, they stumbled over roots and through tangles of vines. As they drew closer to their destination, the air grew colder, and strange whispers began to echo through the trees. Voices crying, screaming, pleading for help. What is this strange chill in the air? Are these voices mere illusions, or is Hellcat's spirit stirring once more? When they finally reached the ruins, the sight that greeted them was one of complete desolation. The land was barren, the trees around it gnarled and dead. Crumbling walls bore deep claw marks, as though some wild beast had raked its nails across the stone in fury. The cursed skull. At the heart of the ruins stood a weathered stone pedestal, and upon it rested the infamous skull. It was no ordinary skull. Its hollow eye sockets glowed faintly red, as though some ancient smoldering fire still burned within. The air around it seemed to thrum with an unseen energy. As soon as Barry laid eyes on it, a wave of dread washed over him. But Ashton, driven by insatiable curiosity, moved forward to touch it. The moment Ashton's fingers brushed the surface of the skull, a sharp gust of wind swept through the ruins, and a deafening, blood-curdling scream pierced the night. The skull, cold and lifeless moments ago, now emitted an intense heat, and flames, cursed, invisible flames, erupted from it. What power does this skull hold, and what does this terrifying scream mean? The curse unleashed Ashton's hands seared with burning pain as the cursed flames licked his skin, leaving dark, charred marks where he had touched the skull. Barry screamed in terror, frozen in place as the air around them grew thicker with the scent of decay. Suddenly, a dark, ghostly figure emerged from the shadows. Hellcat herself, her face twisted in anger, her eyes burning with the same cursed fire that now enveloped Ashton. Her long, flowing hair whipped around her like snakes, and her mouth curled into a menacing snarl. "You have disturbed my rest," Hellcat screeched, her voice echoing like thunder. "For this, your soul shall join the others in eternal torment." Ashton and Barry tried to run, but their legs felt rooted to the ground as if the earth itself had come alive to hold them captive. They were now prisoners of Hellcat's curse. The taste of death. Barry, usually fearless, screamed as Hellcat advanced toward him. "We didn't mean any harm. Please let us go," he cried. But Hellcat's eyes gleamed with malevolence. With a swift motion, she raised her hand, and Barry's body jerked violently as though an invisible force had gripped his soul. In seconds, Barry's eyes rolled back into his head, and his body collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Ashton, now filled with terror, shouted, "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" Hellcat's voice was cold and filled with centuries of hatred. "You will all suffer as I have. Your bloodline owes me for the betrayal of your ancestors." The horrifying truth. Suddenly, Ashton remembered the village elder's stories. Hellcat was betrayed by one of his own ancestors. Before her death, Hellcat had cursed their entire bloodline, vowing that none would live in peace until her soul was avenged. The skull, a relic of her tortured past, was the key to ending the curse, but only if it was returned to its rightful place. Ashton now understood that there was only one way to break the curse. He had to return the skull to its resting place before it was too late, but Hellcat was growing stronger with every passing second. The final sacrifice. With Hellcat's spirit looming over him, Ashton grabbed the skull, ignoring the blistering pain in his hands, and tried to place it back on the pedestal. But Hellcat, furious, lashed out, her claw-like fingers wrapping around Ashton's throat. Her eyes blazed with rage, and the cursed flames began to engulf them both. "Your ancestors took my life, And now you will pay the price, she screamed. Desperate, Ashton closed his eyes and whispered, I'm sorry for the sins of my bloodline. Please let this end. In an unexpected turn, Hellcat's grip loosened, her eyes softening ever so slightly. Her form began to flicker and fade as the flames around them dimmed. The skull, now placed on the pedestal, started to glow brighter, and Hellcat's spirit began to dissolve into the air. With one final, sorrowful look, she vanished into the night, and the cursed flames were extinguished. Miraculous end. Ashton was left standing alone in the ruins, drenched in sweat and trembling from head to toe. Barry was gone, claimed by the curse, but Hellcat's spirit had finally found peace. Ashton had faced death, and though he had survived, he knew he would never be the same. The skull sat silently on its pedestal once more, no longer a threat, but a reminder of the horrors it had witnessed. Has the curse truly been lifted, or is there something more sinister still lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim?